Okay, welcome everybody to another edition of Inside Literature Talk with an Expert. Today we're going to be talking with Carolyn. Carolyn is in software sales and she's going to be talking about what a career in sales, specifically software sales, looks like. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled that you had reached out to me to participate. This is something I'm really excited to be doing.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
excellent. So let's dive right in. Carolyn, what do you do and what does that entail?
Absolutely. So my company is a software company. We're about $1.2 billion in annual revenue, and we're a global organization with around 6,000 employees. So we really service the engineering and manufacturing industries. Kind of our historic core competency has been surrounded by computer-aided design and process management tools. So really helping engineers design and track different 3D models for large scale building projects, large machinery like the rail industry, aerospace and defense. We also support the US, a lot of US government institutions. So I had historically worked within our core business unit for about 4 years, and we really are putting a focus on combining this with kind of our newer emerging technology segment, and that is surrounding the Internet of Things and augmented reality. So Internet of Things is adding digital connectivity to physical objects. So we talk about smart connected operations in the manufacturing space, smart connected products and building for those. For augmented reality, we use this to build out remote training and remote manufacturing tools. Really what we specialize in is digital transformation. So that's the process of taking traditional design and traditional manufacturing and coming up with a digital strategy that's going to use this combination of our tools to have a smarter, more precise, faster, better process. So for me specifically, I'm currently in a field software sales role. So my responsibilities really entail prospecting new logos, so companies that aren't already customers of ours, coaching these prospects through our evaluation process. For a lot of our emerging technologies, these are so new to the market that a lot of our customers haven't gone through this process before. There's not a precedent set. So guiding them through coming up with key metrics and understanding what targets these tools will need to meet in order for it to be a good solution for them. Building out a specific bill of materials and seeing what tools of ours they're actually going to need to buy to come up with their desired outcomes. Present and negotiate pricing, and then completing the procurement process and actually booking the deal. So the title that I have as a segment seller, it is the same job that has a bunch of different titles as at different companies. And it's a business to business sale versus some organizations where maybe you're selling directly to the consumer. It's really research heavy to find companies that are going to be a good fit for the technology products that we sell. And really, it's important to understand who's genuinely going to benefit from our solutions. So I always want to make sure that I'm targeting potential customers whose business is going to be better. It's going to save them time. It's going to save them money. It's going to make everything easier for their employees. And that's a company that would be a good fit. Generally, it's an enterprise sale. So I'm looking to talk with a chief information officer, a chief technology officer, or a chief operating officer. Because again, we're really having that digital transformation conversation. So instead of just saying, this is a software product that I'm selling, it's saying, let's take a look at your business overall and see how I could be a good business partner for you and really help you out long term.
Awesome. That's a lot of information, but that's really interesting. So for people in our audience who might be interested in sales, think, hey, I might be good at that. How would someone looking to start a career in sales do that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's really a core skill set that's always going to help you with this. And as I mentioned, it's going to be really research heavy. So a lot of that is going to involve maybe you have either a geographic territory, there might be certain states that you sell into, or you might be a vertical based salesperson, and that's specific industries that you've been assigned, like automotive or food and beverage production, something like that. And getting an understanding of what the market really looks like. It's a lot of looking up who the major companies are that fall under your bucket, who is doing things that are going to line up with what we need to do. So, maybe a company that it has a lot of manufacturing plants and needs training to be sent, needs field trainers to be sent to do this in person. With COVID, that needs to be done remotely. That's a customer that might be able to benefit from an augmented reality training tool, but it's a lot of research online for that. So having the patience to take the time to do that. It's definitely a lot of public speaking and presentation. So it's being comfortable doing a remote presentation over the phone, but also going on site and talking to people in person and being comfortable kind of speaking to these things. And, a lot of times in my role, I'm talking with folks that have been doing this a lot better, a lot more successfully than I do. I'm certainly not going to assume that I know more than a chief technology officer. So I need to be curious and feel comfortable talking with him to understand what his business goals are. Definitely a big critical thinking component. There's a lot of problem solving with this. So understanding what each organization's business needs are and how you can help solve those is really important. And it's going to be a lot of creative solutions to that, because no two companies are having the exact same challenge. There might be general challenges that you can solve, but understanding that you're really going to need to tailor whatever you're talking about to what they have happening specifically, and being creative about how we could come up with a process that'll solve that. And then of course, negotiation, kind of all of this is going to go by the wayside if, when push comes to shove, you're not able to coach through a buying process. And that's something that I think people sometimes get a little wary of when they first come on board. We all are kind of nervous about talking to people about money. That's something I felt really uncomfortable doing when I first got into sales. That was kind of a taboo subject. So being able to say to somebody, right now, this is an entry-level price point of around $200,000 for this solution. I want to make sure that we're lined up in the same ballpark as we're going through this, because I don't want to cause sticker shock down the line if we determine this is the right solution for you. And also being able to go back to value and saying, if someone is pushing back, saying, listen, we've been talking about this for, let's say, 3 months now, and we've identified that this solution, help solve these 3 problems, and it's going to save you X amount of dollars. So do you mean to say that that's not worth this amount of money to you? So kind of being able to do that is a skill that you'll develop over time, but those are some of the core skills to go into it. And if you'd like, I can go through the kind of specific trajectory with that as well.
Yeah, just what would it look like if you started at an entry-level position in sales and sort of made it up to where you are? What would that trajectory look like?
Yeah, of course. So really, when you start off in sales, you're looking for a job that's usually titled a business development rep. Sometimes they also call it an account development representative. In my company, those are actually 2 different roles. But what this is an entry-level inside sales role where your job is going to be calling people to set up meetings for a more senior salesperson. So you might be in a role where your company has come up with, paid marketing leads, and you'll get leads every day of people that have maybe visited your website and downloaded a white paper, or maybe submitted something on a website that says, I'd like more information, that kind of a form. There's a lot of different ways to get these kind of paid per click leads, but most companies participate in this in one way or another. So you might be in a position where those leads come through and you'll call and email and talk with these folks and understand what generated the interest, and are they interested in meeting with a salesperson to talk about this, and kind of doing what we call initial discovering what generated the interest, what they might be looking to do, what their company does, what their role is, kind of very, very high level overview of where their situation currently stands, and kind of see if that is something that is worthwhile to set up a meeting with a more senior salesperson. Another way of getting meetings, and in my company we break it up where a business development representative calls into what we call an inbound lead, and an account development representative does what we call outbounding. And, those jobs have different titles at different companies. And sometimes it's the same job. So if you're doing what we're calling outbounding, that means researching people online that you think might be a good fit. Maybe your more senior sales rep will give you a list and say, hey, I'm targeting these 10 companies this month. Can you find, 4 or 5 contacts at each of these and try to set up a meeting for me? Or it might be identifying those companies on your own and calling in and trying to generate interest, understand what their current process for some of the challenges we solve looks like, and see if they can, kind of drum up enough interest to, again, set up that meeting. The next step from there is really being an inside sales account executive, account manager, again, lots of different titles for it. And this is someone who usually is working in the small to medium business space. So for my company, that means probably anything that has under $250 million of revenue annually, but there's a big range, again, depending on the target market. So this person is what we call like a full stack salesperson. So they're responsible from that initial meeting that is either passed to them from a BDR or a meeting they set themselves, and they'll work that deal all the way through the close process. So initial discovery, presentation of our solutions, setting up technical demonstrations, and again, all the way through putting together a bill of materials and negotiating this out to a closed won deal. So that's done as an inside salesperson, so it means it's all over the phone and email and they're not traveling. Then from there, there's a whole list of different directions. And what I have up on this slide only really covers a couple of them. What I am right now is a field sales representative. So that means that a BDR, an ADR, or even an AE might be setting up meetings for me or passing me leads, but it's also me doing a lot of that research and work myself up front. And that's doing something that we're calling building out pipeline. So a pipeline full of potential deals or people you're in the process of helping them evaluate our software. So a lot of my meetings are on site. That's one of the things that differentiates my role, is that I'm traveling and meeting with folks in person, doing demonstrations in person. I'm going through value assessment workshops to help build out presentations to a C-suite executive. And it's a more senior role. Most of the organizations I work with do more than $250 million a year in revenue. Right now I'm working with an organization that has a $15 billion annual revenue stream. So that's more of kind of the sweet spot that we're in. And instead of working on what we call transactional business, if you're an inside sales account executive, you're probably closing a greater quantity of deals than I am, but they're smaller and they're more transactional. So it might be you're selling to a director or a manager where they can make a decision about a smaller purchase, versus more of an enterprise deal that might take 6 months to close, but it's a much, much larger dollar amount and larger scope across the organization. So that's what I do. There are also senior inside sales roles, and their role is extremely similar to mine. This is something a lot of companies do, especially now that we have so many remote working tools. So they're closing the same kind of business that I am. The only difference in our roles is that they're not traveling. We also have renewal sales roles. This is an important role at a lot of companies because so many companies are moving over to subscription services rather than purchasing software licenses outright that they would own in perpetuity. It's a subscription that they pay for every year, just like a monthly Netflix account. If you're in renewal sales, it means you're responsible for ensuring that these organizations renew every year. And for my company, we're publicly traded. So when Wall Street is looking at our productivity, they're really looking at annual recurring revenue rather than net new. So I sell net new customers, new deals, but a renewal, that's annual recurring revenue. And that's money that we count on coming into the company every single year based on folks that renew with us. We also have partner management and partner sales reps. A lot of big software companies do this, where we have partner organizations. And those are companies full of software sales reps that are resellers of our product. And it's a way to expand our bandwidth into organizations that we might have not had time to sell into or other relationships. So a partner sales rep might mean, you work for a company like mine and you become an inside sales rep and you're ready to go into the field, but maybe you decide not to do it with my company. You can be a partner sales rep where you're doing the same job that I do as a field rep, but it's for a different sales organization. And a partner manager is somebody that works for the parent, the host company like ours or parent company, and manages all those partner relationships. So if in my territory, there's a company working with one of our business partners, one of our partner resellers, and I have questions about that relationship or how to work with them, or we're butting heads, I call that individual's partner manager and I say, hey, can you help me work through this? And they're responsible for forecasting that partner's business to our upper management. And then you also have options to go into inside sales management. So you might have gone into inside sales and decided, you know, I don't love being an individual contributor, but man, I love coaching new people and I love the business side of this. I love forecasting, like, you know, communicating to upper management and our executive team how much we're going to sell every quarter. You know, they have to report that to Wall Street. So you might decide you'd like to become an inside sales manager, and you can do that without ever having gone into the field. So these are just a couple of avenues. I also see folks take this experience and go into lead marketing. So roles where they're on the marketing team that's generating those leads. There's a lot of different directions that you can go. And it doesn't mean that just because you start in sales, you have to be a salesperson forever. You know, kind of the higher up you go in the sales trajectory, it is a lot more pressure. There is this idea of it being a meritocracy, which is what I like about it. It doesn't matter what your, you know, where you went to school or what your major was or any of that. It's not, no, I'm not going to say like pretty easy, but to get an entry-level sales role, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, a lot of different backgrounds that become a good fit. So I like that your background doesn't inhibit you. You know, I came from a retail background before I got into software sales, and I did not major in communications or anything like that. Although we do see a lot of people that are very successful that actually come as history majors or English majors, tend to do really, really well in this field. That wasn't mine at all. I went to school for fashion merchandising and design, and it isn't, you know, relevant to this. And it doesn't matter because it really is a meritocracy. So as you're going up and becoming more senior, there's definitely pressure because you have a bigger number, a bigger quota to hit every year. But if you're doing well and you're hitting your numbers and you work well with other people, then you're going to move up, and it's not going to matter what your background was before that. And I love that about this. One of my favorite directors has a saying where he says he looks at people and promotes people who have these 3 skills in this order. He looks for attitude, effort, and talent. And if you have a good attitude and you're putting in a lot of effort, the talent part will come. And he'd rather see that. And that's the culture at my company. They would rather see that than someone who's hitting all their numbers, but, you know, is coming in with a bad attitude or isn't, you know, a hardworking person. So I like that meritocracy aspect of it. And I think it is a good career for a lot of different people for that reason.
Yeah. And you've hit on a lot of interesting points that are quite relevant to Inside Literature's own mission. So for those of you in the audience who don't know, Inside Literature comes to the TCCC and we teach literature and writing classes. That's what we usually do. So you might be wondering, why are you showing us this video about a career in sales? So I wondered, Carolyn, if you would mind telling us how the skills learned in Inside Literature courses could be relevant to making a successful career in sales.
Absolutely. So a lot of what you're doing with Inside Literature relates directly into what we do every day. And I know a lot of, you know, the conversations that you're having in these classes and are really surrounding critical thinking. You know, of course, when you're really delving deep into literature, you're not taking things at face value. You have to find out if you've got a reliable narrator, if you're getting good information, you know, who else within the story is contributing to the events that unfold. And in sales, that's really looking at, is our person, is our contact a reliable person? Are they a real champion of what we're doing? Or are they telling me what I want to hear? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the other people at that organization that can contribute to the conversation and share other details that might help me get a better understanding of the full story? And I know that that's something that I'm sure you have a lot of conversations about. You know, it's been a long time since I was in school, but I remember a lot of, you know, finding that being very interesting. Is this a reliable narrator? And am I getting the right information to form an opinion about what's happening here? Or do I have to try to interpret their words and understand what their real intentions are. And that's something that we really have to rip into a lot in the conversations we're having. And not everyone can do that. It is definitely very difficult, and kind of that human behavior aspect. Having strong communication skills, you have to be a strong communicator, and these kind of blend together, writing skills and being able to support an argument. So actually, this is an old school sales interview tool, but there was a very long period of time where you had to submit a writing sample, because a lot of what we do is email communication, and understanding that saying the same thing phrased differently can have a different result, right? So if we're saying something, we want to communicate a specific message, we have to understand who we're speaking with and how that message will best be delivered to that recipient. So if I'm speaking to a CEO versus an end user and I want them to understand the same point, I'm going to touch on very different proof points and explain that very differently and communicate very differently. So, understanding the way that we need to communicate to best deliver our message to the person with whom we're speaking is going to be really important. And when you're putting things in writing, you have to be really careful of how you're doing that. You have to be careful of who may see this and be prepared for this to be something that has a lot of eyes on it. So are you doing this in a professional tone that is also warm and engaging? And a lot of, understanding what the goals are. So you might have someone who reaches out to you and says, I would really like a quote for your software. That might be something you get in writing, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't have nearly enough information to quote them out for this software. And you get excited and you think, oh gosh, they want a quote, they're going to buy. And it's really tempting to say, oh yeah, of course, this is how much it'll cost. But you have to know how to respond to get what you want out of it, and say something like, I'd love to be able to provide you a quote, but I need a little more information to make sure that I'm giving you the most accurate quote for your needs. Can we get on the phone tomorrow around 10 a.m. and talk about it? And that's going to be a much stronger conversation and help you close the deal. But you're putting these things in writing, so you got to be careful. And then how to support an argument. And, when you're going through a value-based sale, we're going to say, we can talk all day long about what the product does, and these are our features. But what we really want to do is tie it back to their goals and be able to say, you told me that you are looking to reduce the time it takes to train your field workers. You are looking to reduce downtime on your machines in the factory, and you're looking to have a stronger safety compliance program. So you can then use the features from the tool to back that up and say, and this is how we do it. But in order to kind of have these conversations, you need to be able to use facts to support your argument. Or I think this is going to be a good choice for you because of these 5 reasons. And it really is almost like that, I learned in school how to write a 5-paragraph essay where I have, my argument, my main statement. I have my 3 paragraphs that support my argument, and they're all fact-based. These aren't, opinion paragraphs. Then I have my final paragraph, my close, where I wrap it all together and do a brief summary of why my three supporting points prove out my initial paragraph. So kind of going through that, supporting an argument or using facts to support your opinion or show why this is correct. That's something that you learn in literature classes and writing classes that's going to be vital to a job like mine. And then really being open-minded. And something that happens to me a lot, to all of us that do what I do, is I go into a conversation with a customer thinking, you know what, I know a lot about their business. I know I've worked with a lot of customers just like this. I understand what must be happening as a problem for them. And then I get into the meeting and I realize, oh my gosh, they have something totally different going on. And I need to be a really active listener. For me, I really like to talk, as you might have been able to tell. So it was a skill set for me to learn how to, shut that down and really listen and be an active listener and say, I understand that you're telling me that this is what you need me to help you with. And being open-minded and knowing, like, I'm not always going to be the know-it-all. I'm not always going to be right. And somebody else is going to have a better answer than I do. And how can I help with that instead of sticking to kind of my point or what I think is right? So I think that having that open-mindedness that you get from a literature class, especially in discussion about a lot of these tomes, is really going to be helpful, because we can read something and form our own opinion of it and think we know exactly what's happening. And then having a conversation, understanding that someone else might have interpreted this totally differently or have come up with a totally different point. And now we need to react and kind of respond to that in an appropriate way. You're not going to get very far if you just think you're the only one that's right all the time and you can't listen to whatever, someone else has interpreted or has formed based on the same information. So those are some of the things that I see coming out of inside literature that are very, very, like I said before, vital skills to what I do. And I think I don't have it on here, but coachability is probably the biggest thing that people look for as well. I know that I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and I've been pretty successful at it. But every day I go into it thinking, not only how am I going to close more business, but how am I going to be better than I was yesterday? What am I going to learn today? And kind of having that curiosity, coachability. I want to know more. I want to get better at it. There's always going to be somebody that knows more than I do. So how can I learn from them? And I think that's something that's coming out of this as well. Anyone who has that tenaciousness and curiosity to, pursue additional classes and doing something like this on their own time is somebody that's going to have that coachability and curiosity to keep learning.
Yeah, this is all super interesting, and I'm sure our audience is really grateful that you took the time to talk with us today.
I think I just clicked out of my presentation. Sorry about that. No, I mean, I was really honored to participate. I think what your program is doing is absolutely fantastic. I've been, as you know, following it for a while, and anything that I can do to, support or participate is great. So this really was an honor for me to be able to talk about this, and hopefully if it is interesting to even one or two of your students, like, I'd be thrilled with that.
Well, excellent. I'm sure that some of our audience today will have found this talk very interesting, and you will all have received a little handout that has some of the key points from Carolyn's talk today. So thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you.
All right.